Welcome to Inside the Noise by Guitarcenter, where we interview the artists, the leaders, and the innovators in the music industry. I'm Gabe Dalporto, CEO of Guitarcenter. Let's go inside the noise. Welcome, everybody, to Inside the Noise. Today, we're with Andy Powers. This is going to be an awesome conversation. Andy is the CEO of Taylor Guitars, but he is a builder's builder. We've been chatting here a little bit, and I just can't wait to get into your story. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Happy to be here.
I would love it if we could start off maybe with a little bit of the history of Taylor Guitars. It has become an iconic brand, but when it was started in, I think, 1974.
Yeah, that's right.
It was, a couple of guys in a small room. And then over the last, 50 plus years, it's become like the staple of acoustic guitars. So I'd love it if you could walk us through a little bit of that journey and, how this came about, what made it special. And then I'd love to get into your journey and how you meld into it too.
So Bob Taylor and Kurt Listug, they both were really interested in guitars as young guys. I mean, Bob was, I think, 19, Kurt was probably 20, 21. And there was like a little hippie guitar shop, almost like the guitar version of a commune. Yeah. I got a fellow in San Diego named Sam Radding had this shop called the American Dream, where different guitar makers could come in and they'd have a little bench and they'd share machinery and that kind of thing.
Kind of like a barber shop.
Yeah, kind of like that for guitar makers, because there was this interest in like the craft side of what instruments were, right? And Bob had tried building a guitar in high school because he didn't have the money to buy a 12-string guitar, so he'd go, I'm good at making things. He was a real like industrial arts kind of kid. And so at a certain point, the founder of that shop, or the operator, Sam, wanted to get out of it. He goes, okay, well, I'm going to sell the company, so whichever of you guys wants to buy it from me, you guys decide amongst yourselves. Like, okay. And so Kurt had the idea of going, well, I want to be in the guitar business. Okay, I'll do it. Went to talk to his parents to see if he could borrow some money. His dad goes, well, who's the best guitar maker there? And Kurt goes, Bob Taylor. He goes, well, I'll loan you some money if you and him go together as partners. And so Bob just wanted to keep doing his work. So they agreed to that and quickly failed. Before too many weeks went by, they had lost all the money and went, well, okay, now we really have to figure this out. We really got to figure out how to actually build some guitars, start, delivering them, kind of get our act together. I mean, they were putting together the pieces of adult life at that point still.
So young.
Yeah. And they did figure it out. They figured it out. It took them probably 10 years or more before they could pay themselves a paycheck each week.
Oh, wow.
That takes time. You got to learn how to just pay your electric bill. So they worked on these guitars.
They're living with their parents and trying to make this thing
doing
work.
Everything that they could. I mean, they say behind every successful guitar maker is a wife with benefits. There's some truth to that stereotype. And so they started with that. And Kurt would go out on the road selling guitars. Bob would be in the shop trying to build them and figure out how to build them. That was one of his real unique gifts, is he's such a natural-born industrialist. He wanted to figure out a way to build the thing and have it come out on purpose every time. So there were certain things design-wise that he liked as a player. He goes, well, I want a thin neck. I want a guitar that's easy to play. Those will be the things I focus on. Okay, well, that was unusual in the world of acoustic guitar with, strings that high from a fretboard.
High strings, fat necks, that was the standard.
That was the typical thing. He goes, well, why can't they play like electric guitars? Those are easier to play. Why not? Nobody made them that way. And so it took a while, but like any great adventure, if you stay at it long enough, eventually you get somewhere. And so at a certain point, 10, 15 years in, they started experiencing some growth, went, this is actually working. Let's try, maybe paying ourselves a little bit each week. This could actually turn into something resembling a job.
Yeah, it's an overnight success that took 20 years.
Just like every musician.
Yeah.
You go, well, you kept showing up. You never went away.
Yeah, I mean, like just the persistence, the constant evolution, like sticking with it. I mean, I think that like for entrepreneurship is like that is the underappreciated ingredient.
Right. Perseverance goes a long, long, long way. And working with players. In this case, they were responding to the kinds of things that players wanted, which was, we like acoustic guitars, but they're hard to play.
Yeah.
Can you make it play well? Okay, well, one of the other things they wanted to do was make a different kind of sound. They wanted guitars that had good balance, so you could use them in a recording environment well. I mean, recording technology has done a lot to influence the sounds that we make as musicians based on what is a microphone, tape, digital, what is it allowed to capture? What is it capable of capturing? Mm-hmm. You know, that changes the taste from the way things used to be.
So my the first guitar I bought was a Taylor. And I think the thing that sticks out to me is I like thinner necks and I don't like high action, right? Like, like kind of smaller
You're an electric
hands.
Guitar player
I'm an electric
right?
guitar player. Like I don't want to fight with the guitar. And that's what I love about my Taylor is it's just like, it's easy, it's comfortable, it sounds great, it just feels great.
Yeah. Yeah. Bob would say that his goal was to work on the objective parts that he could make better. Yeah. Can I make it play well? Can I have a neck that's straight? Could I have action that's consistently low? Could it be serviceable? All those kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it takes, someone new to the industry to really think about things fresh.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're in a company that's been around for 50 or 100 years, like you have tradition, but that can hold you back a little bit.
It absolutely can. Sometimes somebody new has to come in and go, hey, why are we still doing it this way?
Exactly.
I don't really enjoy this very much. Do you like this? Not really. Well, let's change it. And so that's one of the things that was interesting with Taylor being in my view, it's a very much a California company. It's a very Southern California kind of experience to go, well, no one's going to tell me not to do it this way. The tradition might not have made it this far. Let's try something new. Let's try build guitars the way we want to build it.
Yeah.
And so that's what they did. It grew some more. And one of the interesting factors was in the late 70s, the entire music world went away from acoustic guitars.
Yeah.
That hardship is actually what allowed a lot of growth and future success to happen. Mm. It's a really interesting thing, but let's say if you have an established company and you're producing instruments at this kind of level, and then all of a sudden, Saturday night fever comes along and people are playing disco and making different kinds of sounds, acoustic guitar is off the map, you got to curtail what you're doing. Yeah. But if you're still just up and coming at the same time, that was like the great equalizer that allowed a lot of companies who have been through all kinds of things. Think about Martin. Got a huge amount of respect and admiration for what they do as an American company. They're one of the oldest, great companies in this country. They've been through civil wars, they've been through world wars, they've been through pandemics and depressions and all kinds of stuff. But in that late 70s era, man, they had to scale way back.
Yeah, they almost died, right? So when Chris took over, they were on the edge.
They were right at that brink.
They barely made it
right.
Through.
And at the same time, that kind of hardship provided an opportunity for Bob and Kurt to start growing a little bit and go, well, when the tide comes back in, we're all going to start floating a little more.
Yeah. If you kind of take a broader perspective, that narrative really exists in a lot of different situations. Mm-hmm. Every time you have a major economic downturn, like the great financial crisis,
right?
Like 5 years later, there's all these amazing companies that popped up in the middle of the crisis.
Yep.
Like like the dot-com bust, like every single time that you have a crisis, amazing companies are created. And, it's the big companies are kind of stunned. Other people are, freed up and they start to innovate and step into the opportunity.
It reminds me of something my dad told me when I was young. It was, never let a good challenge go to waste.
That's it. Yeah.
Never let a good challenge go to waste.
So I read that it took about maybe 14 years to go from making 30,000 of revenue a year to $1 million.
Yep.
And it took 14 years to go from $1 million to $50 million.
Yes.
And that seems like an incredible growth phase. So
right.
The hardest part was probably getting to that $1 million, and then
yep.
What changed? Like
Bob and Kurt together had started to figure out the pieces of how to allow guitars to get built every day, have them turn out every day. And then on the business, call it the sales side, the marketing side, Kurt figured out how to get guitars out into the hands of musicians through dealers. They figured out how to start marketing guitars, how to start telling the stories behind them, how to start selling them. When you first start, you go, well, I built a guitar. Well, if I want to build another one, I have to sell this one because I don't have any money for materials, right?
Yeah.
And so you go, hey, Gabe, you want to buy a guitar? You being a friend go, sure, yeah, I'll buy the guitar. Well, before too long, you need more friends. Or you go, I need to sell to a circle that's a little bigger than my, immediate neighborhood. And so they started figuring those things out. And the guitars really caught on well with players at the time. They were making sounds that they wanted to hear. They were easy to play. They were really good instruments. And so that phase of growth just, it continues exponentially.
Mm-hmm. So that's like the story of Taylor, right? And Taylor's continued this incredible growth path. And now like almost any musician you're seeing watching at the Grammys is playing your guitar. So this is amazing. Tell me your story. How do you what are you like as a kid? Like how do you step into the story?
So my dad's a carpenter, right? So I grew up around woodworking.
Yeah.
And both my parents are hobbyist musicians. They were never professionals, but they and a lot of their friends loved playing music, just recreationally, 3 chords, pass guitars around. And so I grew up in that kind of environment where there was always people around enjoying playing some songs for themselves. They weren't going to ever step on a stage or play in front of an audience, but that didn't mean that it wasn't important to them.
Yeah.
And, growing up the way I did, I had access to tools. One day my dad brought home a scrap of wood and it was big enough to make a guitar with. I thought, well, that sounds like a cool thing to do. I'm gonna build a guitar because I loved guitars. I loved the shape of it. I loved that they were made of wood.
Did you play at that point?
I was starting to play.
Okay.
I had started on piano when I was real little.
Yeah.
But I really like guitar.
And how old were you when you built your first guitar?
I was 7 or 8 when I tried.
That's insane.
It was a childish attempt at a guitar.
But what 7-year-old decides they want to build a guitar?
A clueless one.
Wow.
Well, I mean, it was childish.
Maybe not so clueless.
It was childish nativity. To go, a guitar. It would be cool. I'm going to do that. And so I started working on this thing. It took me a long time because I didn't know how to make pieces of wood real thin. I didn't know how to put it together. I didn't know that frets were like a thing. So I took a bunch of nails, cut the heads off, cut the points off, got those in there.
Oh. Yeah.
I had a mismatched set of tuning keys. I had a used set of guitar strings, which is just gross. I tried to tune it up when I got it all together, and it exploded into a million pieces because I didn't know what I was doing. I looked at it. I can still remember it. I ran right into the house. We had a guitar, and so I immediately took it and started looking close inside, going, I didn't look close enough when I tried to build this. There's all these sticks inside. They probably make it stronger. I'm going to try again.
Did you disassemble it, or you could just kind of see in there?
I could just see it in there. I mean, that was our family guitar.
Yeah,
I'm not going to ruin that, And so I tried again. That one broke. Tried again. My third attempt stayed together just long enough for me to play some songs on it and go, that's cool. And then it broke. And so I simply started it and didn't stop doing it. And so by the time I was 12, 13, 14, I was doing repairs for all the local music shops. They didn't have woodworking capability, and I was really into guitars. I was building some ukuleles, a few guitars for, it starts as friends of my parents, and then friends of friends, and then it's musicians, and then it's, before you know it, it turns into collectors and museums, and people bring in all kinds of interesting things to go, hey, will you work on this? We know you can. And so all throughout my teenage years, I was playing music a lot. But I was so into instruments of different kinds that I loved to make them, work on them, play them, restore them, whatever. It was all really fun to me.
And tell me, like in that formative era, I mean, it sounds like the great thing is you're learning by trial and error, right? So you're not just taking, here's what a guitar is and repeating.
Right.
You're figuring out how to do things from first principles, right?
Right.
What were some of the external influences that help form you as a guitar maker?
That's an interesting question because that was all pre-internet.
Yeah.
And so
you couldn't just chat GPT it.
Yeah, there wasn't YouTube to look things up. It was like, well, I found a book and then I found this, and there weren't many people around who were doing that. But the neighborhoods that I grew up in, there was a lot of people who were not afraid to try making things. So there were hot rodders, there were architects, there were a lot of musicians around, artists, all kinds of different craftspeople who go, well, look at that. What do you think of its form? Go, I don't know. What do I think? Let me develop an opinion. So you develop like a different kind of relationship with an object that is, on one hand, it's a little more comprehensive because you can see it as a done thing, but there's an analytical side to it. Go, well, what is it made of? How was it made? Why was it made that way? What kind of tools were used when this was made? All those kinds of steps, and they inform how you're going to think about creating this thing. In the case of a repair person, how do you go about fixing it and making it seem original still?
Yeah.
Well, that'll tell you a lot about the working mechanisms as well as the philosophy of the person who designed and built it.
Yeah. I imagine working on repairs, you just see a lot of different types of instruments, a lot of design decisions that the manufacturers had made.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So now you're repairing guitars, you're making bespoke guitars. How do you then find your way into Taylor?
So that was in some ways by accident. I loved what I was doing. I went to UCSD to study music. I kind of figured, well, play professionally because that's what I'd always done. Mm-hmm. But I had this guitar business thing that was going. And one day I was out surfing around the time that, we're a bunch of my cohorts graduating out of college and they're all looking for jobs and things. I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? Like, I can't quit what I'm doing even if I wanted to, because at the time I was a few years back ordered on new instruments or work to be done. Like, I can't stop doing this even if I want to. Oh, wait, all my bills are paid. The IRS thinks that I've been in business for more than 10 years now. Okay, I'll just pretend that this is a job. And so I did that for a number of years. And then I was always playing at the same time. So one year I was playing.
Were you a solo musician? Did you have a band?
No, I played in some different bands, but it was mostly as a sideman. My thing was I would love to go make records with people. I was never cut out for the touring lifestyle. I don't like that too much. And working on guitars, that has me tied to a workshop. But I would love to go into a studio with some guitars, a mandolin, a ukulele, a bass, a pedal steel, a banjo, whatever, take all this stuff and go, all right, let's make a record, And I was playing with a buddy of mine, a singer named Jason Mraz. Mm-hmm. And we ended up playing at a NAMM show, actually, at a Taylor booth. We were doing a kind of a guitar duet sort of thing at the time. And so Bob and I got reacquainted. I had met him once before in my teenage years. And, he set up a kind of a mandate with another guitar maker friend named Pepe Romero Jr. He goes, hey, well, I got an idea. How about we get together one afternoon, everybody brings a guitar that they made, and we'll go talk shop, because as a guitar maker, there's only a handful of people you get to talk shop with. Mm-hmm. Your friend group is pretty small, right? So we got together, and then some months later, I get this real cryptic call out of the blue from Bob. He's like, I want you to come down to the shop, and I want you to come alone. And I'm thinking, oh gosh.
Is he going to shoot you?
He's going to push me into the wood chipper or something. I don't know. I don't know what he's got to be upset about, but whatever. And so, I went down to meet him. He goes, look, we want to be a guitar maker, a guitar manufacturer that's driven by a guitar maker. He goes, that's been me for the entirety of my working life. He goes, we don't want to be just a corporation that's turning out widgets. That's not why we exist. Mm-hmm. We are here to build great instruments, put them in the hands of a musician so that they can go enjoy their music experience. We want that to continue for another generation. Take what you are good at doing, mix it with what we're good at doing, and all of the guitar players would benefit from that.
So from that first conversation, his intention was to put you in ultimately as the leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Because it was...
That takes some vision.
It does. He's a guy who can see 10 years down the road and say, in 10 years, I'm going to be glad I did this.
What was going through your mind?
I was thinking, I didn't see this coming. I mean, on that day, I was thinking I was going to get pushed into a wood chipper and that I probably should have filled out a will. And then I left and went, I don't know what to think about that.
Yeah.
Because at the time, I actually really loved the way that I was working, because I would get to work like one-on-one with every musician that would come through my shop door and go, okay, what would inspire you? What would make you happy? What do you have that you love? What do you...
You're like an artist.
Yeah, it was a very craft-based approach to building an instrument. And so I was a bit reluctant to give that up. And at the same time, the way Bob would describe it after we talked about it for months afterwards. And he goes, well, look, in life, we're all given a few things that we can be good at. Because you're really good at instruments. It's like working the way that you work. You could make a dozen musicians happy every year. You could make their lives better. But working here at Taylor, you could provide for 1,000 different families whose livelihoods depend on producing these designs that you make. You could provide for thousands of people around the world whose livelihoods depend on providing materials to build these guitars. You could make the lives of thousands, hundreds of thousands of musicians better by producing these guitars that they get to enjoy. So what's the highest and best use of the things that you're good at? I went, okay, when you put it that way, this would be better for everybody. I can work on that. I can work toward that.
And how are you feeling in that moment? Like, so you make the commitment, right? And you show up first day. Excited, scared.
All of it. It's like drinking from a fire hose. I think the thing that was most challenging was to be a step or two beyond, like removed from the musician, to go, I was coming from a world where I would sit down with a player, we'd play together, I'd watch how their hands move, go, you can't describe what it is you're feeling or doing, but I can hear it and I can see it. You don't have to try and describe it. I'm going to make you an instrument. And you won't know what it was that changed. You'll just know that you love it, right? It would be like a tailor, pardon the pun, going and taking all your measurements and you putting this jacket on, go, gosh, this feels good.
Yeah.
And so taking that approach and then stepping away and going, okay, now I need to design an instrument that always works for the biggest possible group of musicians in the widest array of styles and environments possible. That's an entirely different challenge. What do I do with that? How do we make it so that it fits a dozen different musicians equally well? I mean, I've never met two musicians who are alike. They're as unique as they are as their own fingerprints.
Yeah, just by nature.
Yeah, like what are all your influences? What are you listening to? What inspires you? Where do you live? What's life like?
Yeah, I feel like musicians are a little bit counterculture to begin with, a little bit rebellious to begin with.
Oh yeah.
They're individualists, and then so a significant challenge.
Yeah, so that was a real challenge, but I've loved it. It's been great to go, well, this is a way to provide a really inspiring instrument to a lot of players. And you hear what comes out of it and goes, wow, I don't remember installing those notes, but you found them. Cool, that's great,
What I love is Bob's vision to understand that he needed like a musician and a real craftsman to drive the company forward. And if I look in the music industry, there's a lot of examples where corporations have tried to take over instrument companies.
Right.
And it's generally gone really badly.
Right.
CBS bought Fender in the 60s. And
Norlin,
that
Gibson,
right?
I mean, there's
not a good track record of business people running an instrument company. And when they get back on track, it's usually because you have someone who really is a musician or a craftsperson or whatever who just understands the customer and the importance of the instrument. And it's not just a business. Like it is something much more than a business.
Yeah, I think a lot, you're absolutely right in saying that. I think it has to do with the currency conversion. Okay?
Oh, I'm going to love this analogy.
Well, if you think about most business people, they do their business with dollars, euros, cents, yen, whatever, pick your currency. Most musicians want to do their business with creativity, self-expression, inspiration. Those two things, those two currencies don't inherently match. So when I hand you an instrument, as a musician, you go, well, where is the song in this? Where's the heart? Where's the thing that makes me want to play? Where's the emotion? And a lot of times business people would look at it and go, what's the profit margin? What's the sourcing model? What's the distribution model?
How can I get 11 cents out of this?
Right.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. You get, well, this is weird. And so that there's inherently some friction there. Yeah. And so as a guitar maker, that's what I love to eliminate. I mean, granted, we're in the business of staying in business. If you can't keep your light bill paid, well, it's going to go dark. That's not going to work. But that's not the primary thing that would drive a person like me or another musician or most of the guitar makers that I know. We love the instrument and we love that people play songs with them. Yeah. That's the thing we want to encourage.
Yeah, I feel like we see this every day, in our stores. You'll have someone walk through the doors and they've, read the social media and they're convinced they want to buy whatever, guitar it is. And they pick it up and they're like, that's not right. And then they try like 20 other, and then there's just one that just like emotionally speaks to them. Right.
Totally.
And they had no intention of buying that instrument today, but they are now like full on in love with it. Right. That is a guitar.
That's absolutely it. I've watched it time and again to go, musicians don't choose instruments.
Yeah.
Instruments choose musicians.
100%. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I love walking into like a Guitar Center store, and you see this entire, like in the GC Hollywood store. I love walking in there because you see this entire wall of guitars. You go, which one of these might pick me? Like, I'm not sure, but this could go any direction, right?
Yeah. Hey, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We've actually been really overwhelmed by the response so far, so thank you for that. We have also noticed that a lot of you haven't subscribed yet. We have incredible guests coming up. I'm not even allowed to tell you who they are, but trust me, you don't want to miss this. So hit subscribe. That way you don't miss an episode. Now back to the program.
Now that we're on Guitar Center for a second, like, I find like many people have Guitar Center stories. Like, what is your Guitar Center story?
I would say that the first time I went into the GC Hollywood location, I mean, we've got there's a Guitar Center in a couple of different places. That's a relatively short drive. But the first time I went into the Hollywood location, the sheer scale of it is shocking.
Yeah.
And the variety, the depth of makers, of styles, because as a musician, I've appreciated a lot of different types of instrument. I've played a lot of different kinds of music in a lot of different environments. And so I'm easily distracted in different directions. And that walking into that shop was like, oh, I could spend some time here. There is a lot of inspiration to be had just by going, well, I'm going to go right down this wall, one right after another.
Now, are you
Let's
spending
see
your
what
time
songs.
in the acoustics, but are you also playing electrics and other
Oh,
instruments?
all kinds of things. Yeah. It's like I love playing banjos. I love mandolins. I love electric guitars. I like steel guitars. I like ukuleles. I like nylon string guitars. There are all kinds of cool ways to go.
Yeah, we've got one of your nylon strings right here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a great instrument.
Yeah,
I'm thrilled that we get to make those. I mean, you listen to the sounds that come out of nylon string guitars and realize how much great music is coming from that. I mean, I think a lot of people, when they look at a nylon string instrument, they go, oh, it's a classical guitar. And so they instinctively think, well, it's got to go on over this knee and not this one.
Yeah.
I need a footrest and the whole proper right hand position. That's cool. I love that. But I also love Willie Nelson's music. I mean, I love the way Zach Brown will play a nylon string guitar with a pick and flat picking it like it was, a steel string dreadnought and just getting after it. My buddy Jason plays all kinds of cool music on a nylon string. I love those sounds. There's any number of ways you can play it. I like playing bossa nova and some Brazilian style music. It's great.
Yeah, a lot of the classical nylon guitars have a funny shaped neck, and it's just it's a different playing experience.
It is.
What I love about this guitar is it feels very natural, like a traditional acoustic guitar.
Right.
And it's maybe it's easier for someone like me to pick it up and to experience it without having the different, hold it differently in your hand and
it
different
feels
posture.
like an open invitation to try. And that's one of the things that I love with instruments is that you can, unlike your voice, you can try different voices on. You can try different sounds. Go, well, what would happen if I picked this guitar up and I played it like that? Try it and see.
Yeah.
A lot of classical guitars, you do end up with a real unusual, for a steel string player or electric player, it feels unusual, almost like a D-shaped cross-section neck because it was intended for a different style posture with a different thumb position, different right hand position. It's oriented towards a certain style of playing. But if I want to strum a couple of chords, that doesn't feel very good. So these instruments we're building with a real familiar, comfortable round neck, a little arch to the fretboard. It's not quite so wide. You can get around on it real easy. You can even use a capo on it and it'll work really well. I like creating avenues for musicians to explore sounds.
I love that. I mean, it kind of goes back to Bob when he created the thinner neck just because that felt right to him.
Absolutely.
And he threw tradition out and he built something better. Speaking of something better, I'd love it if you could tell me about this guy.
Okay.
You just launched it. It's the new 814 CE.
CE,
But
yes.
you've done some really innovative things with the neck. So tell me a little bit about
Okay, so this one's what we call our next gen guitar. Okay, now that next gen series, these are bringing some of our kind of newest, latest, greatest innovations into the guitars that we're most known for. So an 814 CE, that's been like the iconic, really the quintessential modern acoustic guitar, the modern Taylor cutaway electric acoustic guitar. Well, starting about 10 years ago, I had this idea to go, if I look forward and imagine what I would want acoustic guitars to do and how I would want them to be, I want them to do a better job serving the needs of a musician. In a world where that might have fewer repairs, fewer people who are skilled in the traditional repair arts, I want the guitar to be more adjustable. And at the same time, I want it to sound better than ever. I want it to be more convenient. I want it to not be a struggle for a musician. When we sell guitars to musicians around the world, they might be hundreds of miles from the nearest person who could work on it. Well, how do you build a guitar that does a good job taking care of that player?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to build a guitar that you could adjust the string height. I don't want to disassemble the guitar. I don't want to take it apart. I don't want to have to even take the strings off. I just want to be able to adjust it. And I want it to look traditional, sound traditional, feel great. I don't want to even look at it and know that something's different or weird because that feels off-putting when I pick the instrument up. So I created this neck design that we call the action control neck that's actually mirroring like a real traditional, like mortise and tenon style neck, where the heel structure's got a lot of rigidity to it, but I could use that to control exactly the neck angle just with the tiniest little adjustment, and it has the functional effect of changing the string height. Well, once I do that, the guitar serves the needs of a musician really well. You can adjust it at the drop of a hat without ever retuning it even, and yet I can use that to revoice the guitar and unlock all kinds of other new options. So this guitar has a scalloped V-class bracing architecture inside where it kind of encourages the low-end resonance.
That's probably French to most people. What does that mean?
Okay, so all the way back to my very first failed guitar experience, where I didn't realize that braces were necessary, I've been fascinated with the architecture that happens inside an instrument, whether it's an archtop guitar, flat top guitar, classical guitar, because aside from just making the thing strong, you're creating a certain kind of voice. It's like imagining the architecture of your voice box versus mine. They're different.
Yeah.
They make different sounds. They encourage different vowels. They encourage different kind of tonality. And so this V-class architecture was something I'd come up with a number of years ago that's like a blend of archtop guitar, classical, mandolin, and steel string shapes all built into one system. It allows for a very controllable, like easily voiced kind of bracing architecture. And when I couple it with this neck design that allows a lot of adjustability, it gives me even more latitude to change how the sound of that guitar, how it's going to kind of emanate from the top and make the whole thing resonate.
That's amazing. But what I love is you just solved one of the things that is my biggest pain point. Because I'm an electric player, I like my action low.
Right.
But then if the humidity changes, if the temperature changes, all of a sudden it's too low or too high or something. Right. And like now I got to go and to Guitar Center and have them adjust the neck. And now I can just do this at home. Right. So like, fantastic.
Yeah. Or like one of the struggles that I've had as a maker, I'll talk to a musician who's out on tour. Really common tour route might be anywhere from like the Northeast. Mm-hmm. You're up in Maine or someplace middle of winter, real cold, real dry. Yeah. Your guitars behave one way. By the time you end the tour down towards Florida, you're really hot and humid. It's like complete opposite. You might cover that span in 2 weeks. You go, yeah, the guitars are going to be wrong when you start, and they're going to go through a period in the middle where it's pretty good, and they're going to be wrong when you finish. Yeah. That's a rough life for a musician.
I love it. So you've been building guitars your entire life. And you've built one-on-one bespoke models for a lot of incredible musicians. You're now at one of the most iconic brands in the industry, and you get to build it for thousands and thousands of people. Do you have like an oh crap moment where you saw someone playing your instrument on stage and it just kind of like blew your mind and you felt like you had arrived?
Yeah, I've been extremely fortunate because I've had a number of those occurrences where it felt like you contributed to something that was greater than yourself. You go, I'm sort of speechless. Like there was once when in my pre-Taylor days, I built an ukulele of all things, and it ended up in the hands of Elvis Costello.
Oh, how cool.
I had no idea. It was one of the only times I've ever built an instrument up to that point and not known who would end up with it. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, he walks into this shop and goes, I want that one. And one morning, I'm out working in my workshop. My phone starts ringing, and all these friends start going, hey, did you build a uke for Elvis Costello? I go, I don't think so. I mean, I haven't talked to him. I'm a huge fan of his music. And he recorded some songs with Emmylou Harris on just this uke and started playing on all the late night talk shows, just accompanying himself with this ukulele that I'd made.
Oh, what a feeling.
And then, the next week, Rolling Stone magazine comes out and there's this 2-page spread of him with just this uke, and went, well, all right then. That's kind of cool. Wow. Another one I got to, I had just finished a prototype guitar that was to become a grand orchestra model later. And I had built one and sent it to the Edge. And then it turns out they were playing, I think it was the first edition or the first episode of The Tonight Show with Jimmy Kimmel or something like that. Or one of the other late night things. It was a big deal at the time. And they come out and there's all 4 of these guys singing the song with just Edge playing this acoustic guitar. I went, man, that was on my workbench like 2 days ago. And I was just getting strings on it.
Oh, that's amazing.
I've had some of those moments to go, wow, that's the thing that's going to inspire you? Well, I feel pretty inspired myself. I'm going to go try and see if I can do a little better job, Let's build an instrument that's better than the last one I made.
I mean, you think about the Edge. The Edge could literally play any instrument in the world, and he picked your guitar to play live.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, this is just so cool.
Yeah, I love it. Tell me a little bit about, because you're more than just work, right? And I mentioned in the beginning, you're a builder, right? So like you and your sons are working on some projects. Tell me about you as a builder.
So growing up in Southern California, there's a lot of things that we get to do. Our weather's great. So I've adopted kind of a lot of the Southern California traits, that you grew up with. So I'm really into growing fruit trees. I've got a hobby orchard. I love them. I love watching trees grow. That's kind of a fun thing. But in San Diego, we have this big surf culture. It's kind of like the epicenter for a lot of surfing. And so I build surfboards and we go surfing a lot, as well as work on cars. I'm into hot rods, kind of always have been.
What's your favorite hot rod?
Oh, favorite. What's your favorite thing to eat? It's hard to choose.
It's like asking me my favorite guitar.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's a really,
I don't want to offend the other guitarists.
That's a dangerous question. I have an appreciation for a lot of things. Like, right now, our oldest son's been working on a 29 Model A. That one's a real fun one because it's such an early driving experience.
It resembles a Tesla in no way.
Four wheels.
Yeah.
You know, you got that. 4 wheels, cutting edge technology for the time.
For the time. Yeah.
You know, it's got that. You know, I've got a 38 Ford 2-door sedan that I really like. My wife really likes driving that one. Yeah, so we play with things like that. All kinds of different flavors. But I like making stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we live in a house that we designed and rebuilt ourselves. I like making furniture sometimes. You know, there's no end to the things that you can know about when you set your mind to it. You know, once you learn the process of learning something, you go, well, what captures your attention? Pursue it. If it's speaking to you, there's a reason for it. Go explore it and see where it takes you.
Yeah, and imagine like by building surfboards, by working on cars, by doing all these things, you're probably bringing ideas to your
absolutely.
to Taylor. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's that parallel thinking. In fact, I think most of my best guitar ideas come from some other avenue of life. In fact, like the V-Class architecture, that was inspired by a rainy, blown out surf day. I'd gotten up early one morning. We had this big success. I revoiced our flagship guitars at the time. And literally the week after we unveiled those to the world, you know, everything's great. Players are loving the guitars. I got up early to go surfing, and a storm had blown through, and it was just like victory at sea, you know, just white caps and windy. I'm staring out there at the water, standing on this bluff going, I could still be asleep right now. Staring at it for a while, I went, you know, this is still a little like what my guitars are doing. I'm watching waveforms. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. I pay attention to this for a minute. What can I come up with? And, you know, a couple days go by, the weather cleans up, and I'm at a different surf spot and going, actually, this is what I want it to look like. There's still swell in the water. I can still see the way that these orderly bands of energy are moving through water. But now I've got this really calm, uniform surface to the water. Like, I need a guitar top that's going to allow resonance pattern more like this. And so that was what led to the development of that bracing architecture.
Incredible. So I'd love to hear it, if you don't mind.
Sure. I take requests.
For those of you who don't know, Andy is an incredible musician.
Well, thank you. Depends on who I'm standing next to.
There's always someone better.
There is, man. I've been really fortunate as a musician to get to play with some phenomenal players and learn a lot of things from them. And I've enjoyed that a great deal. And hear their inspirations, their influences.
beautiful. Now I have to go buy one of these. What have you done?
I uninstalled the wrong notes.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's good fun, man.
Well, thank you for that. And look, maybe final question, just, you get to step into this amazing company with this amazing legacy, but, you obviously need to think about the future. Like, what is your vision? Like, where do you hope Taylor to be, 10, 20, 30 years from now?
I think that we'll be continuing to build guitars and doing a better job every single day trying to build a better instrument for that day's musician. Because one of the things that I've noticed in the course of human history, music never goes away. People will be playing music long beyond the time when we're dead and gone. Some of the earliest artifacts of mankind, those have been musical instruments.
Yeah. And it's drawn on the cave walls and everything. Yeah.
To me, that signals the importance of these things. And so I look at these and go, well, we're like a handmaiden to the arts. We want to continue to do a great job building an instrument that inspires the day's musician. I don't know what form that might come in. I don't know what kinds of music a musician might play. But I want to be right there with them, creating the things that give voice to their songs.
And if you think about like just guitars and how much they've evolved, I mean, really dramatically over the last 200 to 300 years.
Yeah.
There's like innovation is still there, right?
It is.
This neck, like the V shape, like it's still happening and it's still evolving and it's a living, breathing, alive thing.
Yeah, I mean, guitars really are a young instrument by most instrument standards. You look at the modern form of violin was arrived at in the late 1600s, early 1700s. We haven't really moved a lot past that because it achieved this level that was like, oh, this is more than what a musician could ask for. Guitars, we're still working on that.
Yeah, I love it.
It can still come in different forms. I mean, look at the form of electric guitar. That's not centuries old, that's decades old. That's like toddler age in the world of instrument tradition.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things that we can still work on.
I love it. Yeah. Well, Andy, thank you for joining us. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for playing.
It's my pleasure.
Again, like first acoustic I ever bought was a Taylor. Love what Taylor has done. I love what you're doing. I was playing this instrument earlier today and I was like, this is really fantastic.
Thank you.
So, lots of luck and can't wait to see the innovations that's still to come.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for joining. Thank you all.
Yep.
Man, that sounds good. Thank you for joining, everybody. Andy Powers, what an inspiration. A builder's builder, a true inventor. One of the most interesting things that I found from our conversation is how inspiration comes from such unexpected places and obstacles. From a blown out surf day to the V-class bracing, Andy can find inspiration anywhere, from a building in Narita to an adjustable neck, anywhere. Such an inspiration. I can't wait to see where he takes Taylor in the future. And in the meantime, enjoy his guitars and hit the subscribe button. See you next week.